All right, let's talk about Celtic, because there's a lot going on, and things are heating up quickly. Tomorrow night, under the lights of Celtic Park, it's back to UEFA Champions League duty. And the opponent? Kairat Almaty, champions of Kazakhstan. And a side that, to be fair, not many people around here knew a whole lot about until very recently. But, as always in Europe, it doesn't matter how obscure the name might seem. If you underestimate the opponent, you can get stung. And that's the last thing Celtic can afford in a campaign where the pressure is already sky high. Now, let's be honest. This is a game Celtic should be winning. Not just edging, not scraping through. We're talking about a dominant, convincing, no questions asked win. That has to be the mindset. Because for all the chaos around the squad, the injuries, the lack of transfer business, the desperate search for a striker, the fact remains, Celtic are a stronger side than Kairat, especially at home. But we've all been here before, haven't we? Nights where we thought the result was a formality, only for it to go sideways. So as much as there's room for optimism, there's also a healthy dose of caution. Now, something that really sets the tone for this one. Kairat's already played several rounds to get to this point. Their route has been tough. Physically, that has to have an impact. Add the travel, the time difference, the sheer disruption to their routines. We're talking about a team that's going to be stepping onto the pitch at what is basically midnight, their time. They've been spotted using local Glasgow facilities. Spas, saunas, the works. And while that might sound like nothing, it tells you something. They're trying to acclimatize. But there's only so much you can do when you're thousands of miles from home and you're about to walk out into the cauldron of Celtic Park. But let's flip it. What do we know about Kairat, really? This isn't just a random team from the step. They've beaten the champions of Slovakia, Slovenia, and Finland to get here. They weren't favorites in those ties, and yet here they are. They've shown resilience. They've shown organization. And maybe most importantly, they've shown that they don't crumble when the pressure's on. Against Slovan Bratislava, they went behind after a horror mistake and still found a way to level it, take it to penalties, and then win the shootout. That's not nothing. That's not a team who will lie down. But here's the thing, the eye test matters. Watching them against Slovan, the defensive frailty stood out. Slovan cut through them with one-touch passing and very little movement. There were spaces everywhere. And if that's happening against a side like Slovan, what do you think is going to happen when they're up against a team like Celtic, at home, in front of 60,000 fans with real tempo and purpose? If Celtic start the way they did against Falkirk, with that aggression, that press pinning them back early, it could be a long night for the Kazakh champions. That's got to be the plan. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room. The transfer window. More specifically, the Jamie Vardy links. Yes, you heard that right. Jamie Vardy, former Premier League champion, 38 years old, potentially wearing the green and white hoops before the window slams shut. And, look, depending on who you are, that's either a dream or a disaster. Because on one hand, it's Jamie Vardy. Even last season, when everyone was saying he was finished, he bagged 9 goals in the Premier League in a relegated Leicester team. The year before that, 18 goals in the championship. The man scores goals. That much is fact. But here's the flip side. He's 38. This is not a long-term solution. If Celtic had gone out, spent money, done the scouting, and landed a younger striker with potential, nobody would be asking these questions. Instead, we're 2 weeks from the window closing, and we're looking at a free agent, 38 years old, trying to squeeze a final run out of his legs. That's not ambition. That's desperation. And it's that sense of scrambling that's really frustrating supporters, because how did we end up here? Everyone knew Adam needed replacing. That's not breaking news. Yet here we are with days to go and still no permanent solution in place. And yes, there's a world where Jamie Vardy does come in and tears it up. He's not coming in overweight. He's kept himself in great shape. And he's got that mentality. He's played under Brendan Rodgers before. He knows what's expected. He's not coming to Scotland to retire. He'd want to prove something. But the fact remains, this isn't how a club like Celtic should be operating. This should have been handled weeks ago. It's not just about ability. It's about the message. What message are you sending when your big signing is a player pushing 40? Now, let's shift it back to the pitch. Because despite the issues off it, tomorrow night is a massive opportunity. It's a chance to put this tie to bed, and in the first leg, with away goals no longer a factor, there's no need to sit back or play it safe. 3 goals, that should be the target. And make no mistake, that kind of result is doable. Kairat have not faced a team of Celtic's caliber in this run. They've not played in an atmosphere like this. And they certainly haven't gone up against a midfield that can control the game the way Celtics can. Even with key players missing, there's still enough in this team to get the job done. That midfield, Callum McGregor, Hatate, Paulo Bernardo if he plays, can dictate the tempo. And if we get movement up top with Maida pressing, Yang causing chaos off the bench, and someone stepping up to take the number 9 role seriously, it's game on. Defensively, yes, there are concerns. Left back is still an issue. KT isn't going to last 90 minutes, and that's just the reality. But with Carter Vickers back and Kasper Schmeichel in goal, there's some stability there that Celtic didn't have at this stage last season. And that's where the edge lies. This isn't a perfect Celtic team, far from it. But even in its current state, it's got more than enough to see off a Kairat side who rely on grit and moments. They got a striker who's physical, a couple of pacey wingers from Brazil and Portugal, and a young Kazakh prodigy on his way to Chelsea. But they don't have the depth or experience of a side like Celtic. The centre-backs have a combined age of 66. One of them is 37. That's not going to cut it when you got Maida running at you for 90 minutes. So what's the key? It's all about the start. Celtic have to come out flying, set the tempo, press high, and don't give Kairat time to breathe. Make them uncomfortable, make them panic, force them into mistakes. That's what happened against Slovan. They panicked under pressure. Celtic have the quality to do that. The Falkirk game proved that. Press from the front, camp them in, make it feel like a siege. That's when the chances will come, but the biggest danger, complacency. Thinking the job is done after a couple of early goals. We've seen that movie before. Remember Cluj? 4-3 loss at home when everyone thought it was wrapped up. These European qualifiers have a nasty habit of punishing arrogance. Celtic need to be ruthless. 1 goal is not enough. 2 goals might not even be enough. The only way to make the second leg stress-free is to take it out of Kairat's hands. Completely. And look, they got a bit of bite. They're not mugs. They're not going to roll over. They've come through adversity. They'll try to keep it tight, frustrate, and nick something on the break. But if Celtic hit their level, if the crowd's up for it, and if Brendan Rodgers gets the big calls right, this could be the night where everything clicks. The pieces are there. It just needs to be put together. Let's dive a little deeper into what's at stake. Not just in terms of this one-off fixture, but what this game represents for Celtic right now. Because there's a feeling creeping in among the support. And it's not entirely new, but it's louder now. The sense that Celtic are playing catch-up in a summer where they should have been leading from the front. The same old pattern. Wait too long, act too late. Scramble at the end. And when you step back, it's honestly baffling. Champions of Scotland, guaranteed European football. Big money in the bank from recent sales. And still, here we are. Talking about a squad that's got holes in key positions and a support that's being told to trust the process. Now look, supporters don't expect miracles. They don't expect 10 players in, each one a world beater. But they do expect structure, clarity, and ambition. And right now, that's exactly what feels missing. You've got Brendan Rodgers clearly frustrated, using phrases like, hopefully we can get someone in press conferences. That's not the language of a manager who's been given what he needs. That's the language of someone firefighting. And when you're already deep into August with the Champions League on the horizon, that's a massive red flag. And the Jamie Vardy situation, it's a perfect example of that contradiction. On one hand, you've got a player with a proven pedigree. A player who, yes, is well into his 30s, but still performing at a level most strikers in Scotland can only dream of. But on the other, you've got to ask, why is this the move now? Why is this something we're entertaining with days to go? If he was always part of the plan, why wasn't it wrapped up earlier? And if he wasn't, why are we even here? Because this isn't just about Vardy. It's about what it says regarding the way Celtic approach recruitment. Where's the long-term planning? Where's the strategy? Where's the replacement for Jota that we were told would come? Where's the depth out? Wide that everyone can see is sorely lacking. Instead, it's August, and we're still giving James Forrest heavy minutes. That's no disrespect to Forrest. He's been a great servant to the club, but he shouldn't still be our go-to option in 2025. The sense is that Celtic aren't just slow. They're reactive, waiting for something to go wrong before fixing it. And in Europe, that's a recipe for disaster. You can get away with it in the league sometimes. Not always. Rangers are breathing down our neck again, but sometimes. But in Europe, teams are sharper, more organized, more punishing. You give a poor side a glimmer of hope, and you might never see them again. And that's the risk Celtic take when they go into these games undercooked. So tomorrow isn't just about beating Kairat. It's about setting a tone. It's about reminding everyone, especially ourselves, what Celtic are supposed to be. Not just a team that squeaks through qualifiers. Not a team scrambling for late signings, but a club with standards, with style, with strength. That's what we want to see reflected on the pitch. And let's be clear, if the players bring the right intensity, if they come out with the right mentality, they can blow Kairat away. And they should. Look at that centre-back pairing again. A 37-year-old and a 30-ish-year-old. Both slow on the turn, both there to be exposed. Any striker worth his salt, any wide player with a bit of pace and movement should be licking their lips at that. And if Celtic don't exploit it, that's on them. And you know what else? Set pieces could be massive. If you watch that Falkirk match, you'll have noticed just how sharp Celtic were from dead balls. Delivery was bang on. Timing was there. And the movement was clever. If they bring that same energy and accuracy against a tired, jet-lagged Kairat defense, goals are there for the taking. But, and this is the big but, it only works if Celtic set the pace. If they let the game drift, if they invite Kairat to settle, then all of that advantage starts to melt away. These qualifiers are unforgiving. One mistake, one lapse in concentration, and you're staring down the barrel. That's why the first 20 minutes tomorrow night are absolutely crucial. Get on top, get the crowd going, and don't let up. Because let's not pretend like Celtic Park can't be intimidating. When it's rocking, when the team gives the fans something to believe in, it's electric. But when it's flat, when there's tension in the stands, when it feels like we're playing with one eye on the transfer window instead of the pitch, then it gets nervy. Then mistakes creep in. That's when ties turn. So the team needs to give the support something from the first whistle. Get them involved. Get them believing. And it's not just the players. Rodgers has a big role to play here. This is where he earns his money. Because yes, the squad is thin. Yes, there's been mistakes in the market. But when the whistle goes, none of that matters. What matters is how you set the team up. Who you trust. How you react if things don't go to plan. That's where the top managers prove their worth. Rodgers needs to get this one absolutely spot on. The right 11, the right subs, the right message. And speaking of the 11, a lot of questions flying about. Who plays at left back? Can KT really last to 90? Will it be Liam Scales again? What about midfield? Does Hatate come straight back in? Should Holm keep his place after Friday's performance? And up front, do stick with Maida? Do throw Yang on from the start? All of these questions are valid, and none of them have easy answers. But one thing's for sure. This is not the time for half measures. If a player is fit and firing, he plays. You don't rest people in a game like this. You don't keep aces in your pocket. Get the job done and then manage minutes later. That's the only way to approach it. And if Rodgers is serious about the midfield being the engine room, then we need to see it dominate. McGregor dictating tempo, Hatate driving forward, and someone else stepping up to offer that final pass, that bit of invention. Because for all the criticism around the striker situation, part of the issue is service. The final ball hasn't now been good enough. That's where the game could be won or lost. Not just with finishing, but with creating. And again, not to repeat the point, but this Kairat side can be got at. They've come through 3 rounds, yes, but the tape doesn't lie. Sloppy goals conceded, poor tracking, dodgy clearances. They rely on physicality and organization, but the moment you move them around, stretch the pitch, increase the tempo, they start to wobble. Celtic need to make that happen early. No slow build-up, no letting them grow in confidence. Hit them hard, hit them fast. And yeah, it's frustrating that we're not better equipped for this stage, that the board haven't delivered the reinforcements that Rodgers clearly wanted. But the players that are here, they're good enough, more than good enough. And this game, this fixture, has to be the proof of that. Win this comfortably and you take the sting out of the return leg. You make it about finishing the job, not surviving the trip. And when you're facing a team with a massive home advantage, altitude, hostile crowd, weird kickoff times, you want to be heading there with a cushion. A big one. Because if it's still tight and it becomes about grit and moments and margins, anything can happen. That's not where Celtic want to be. So make no mistake, guys, this is a pressure game. Not because Kairat are elite, not because Celtic are underdogs, but because everything around the club feels like it's teetering. The supporters want something to grab onto, something that says we're still on the right path, that Rodgers is still the man, that the team still has it, and most importantly, that the club hasn't gone to sleep at the wheel. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. The footballing world has been shaken by what many are already calling the most astonishing transfer in Scottish football history. João Felix has officially joined Celtic. For weeks there were whispers, quiet conversations behind closed doors, and speculation dismissed by skeptics as nothing more than fanciful gossip. But now the rumor mill has given way to concrete reality. The Portuguese forward, once hailed as one of the brightest stars of European football, has signed for the Glasgow Giants in a move that no one could have foreseen even in the wildest of dreams. Supporters gathered around Celtic Park in disbelief, some refreshing their phones repeatedly just to confirm the news wasn't an elaborate prank. The signing represents a bold statement of intent by the club, a declaration that Celtic are no longer content to dominate domestically, but are ready to assert themselves on the continental stage. For years, fans have craved a marquee signing, someone capable of lighting up the Champions League nights under the floodlights in paradise. And with João Felix now wearing the green and white hoops, those dreams appear closer than ever to reality, sparking a frenzy that has reverberated far beyond Glasgow's East End. There is, of course, much discussion surrounding how such a transfer came to be. João Felix had been linked to clubs in England, Italy, and Spain, with talk of his future tied to the richest leagues and the most glamorous names. Yet somewhere in the shadows, Celtic quietly navigated negotiations, working with determination and secrecy to ensure this audacious move materialized. Financial details remain murky, and many question how Celtic, operating within the modest economic confines of Scottish football, could lure a talent of Felix's stature. Some point towards creative sponsorship arrangements, others whisper about investment injections that have yet to be revealed, and still more wonder if the player himself pushed for this unexpected turn in his career. Insiders hint that Felix, disillusioned with the glamour and pressure of the biggest European leagues, saw in Celtic a chance to rediscover joy in football, to play for a club where passion still matters more than corporate polish. Regardless of the mechanics, the mere fact of his arrival has redefined perceptions of what Celtic can achieve, transforming the transfer market into a theater where the impossible is suddenly attainable. In the pubs of Glasgow, the chatter has been relentless. Supporters who once debated over formations and domestic rivals now argue over where Felix should slot into the team, whether he will operate as a second striker, a false nine, or perhaps thrive drifting from the left flank. The excitement is palpable and yet mixed with nervous anticipation. Can Felix adapt to the physicality of Scottish football, where frozen pitches and uncompromising defenders await? Old hands remind the younger generation that glamour signings don't always guarantee success, while optimists retort that João Felix is no ordinary player, that his vision, flair, and technical brilliance will thrive regardless of the setting. Among Rangers fans, the mood is noticeably different, tinged with unease at the seismic shift in the balance of power this signing could provoke. Even neutrals, journalists, and pundits from across Europe have been drawn into the debate, with many already speculating about Felix's potential impact on Celtic's Champions League campaign. For now, though, the talk is less about tactical intricacies and more about the sheer shock, the delicious sense of disbelief that such a global star has chosen the hoops. The implications of this move stretch far beyond Celtic Park itself. In a league often dismissed by outsiders as predictable, Felix's arrival adds a new layer of intrigue and global attention. Broadcasters are said to be scrambling to renegotiate deals, sensing a surge in viewership numbers as fans from Portugal, Spain, and beyond tune in to watch their beloved Felix in green and white. Merchandising departments are already overwhelmed, with queues forming at Celtic superstores as supporters rush to secure shirts emblazoned with his name and number. Economically, the ripple effect could be enormous, boosting not just Celtic's, profile, but that of Scottish football as a whole, drawing sponsorships, investment, and new eyes to a league often starved of international relevance. The narrative of Felix at Celtic also plays into football's romance. The idea that even in a world dominated by mega-rich clubs, passion and identity still matter, that a historic club can still capture the imagination of world-class talent. Journalists are right to call it historic, for rarely has a single transfer so thoroughly rewritten expectations about what is possible in the Scottish game. For João Felix himself, this represents both a risk and a renaissance. Leaving behind the limelight of the Spanish league and the high-pressure environments of Europe's richest clubs, he has chosen instead to embrace the unique energy of Celtic Park, where 60,000 voices roar in unison and the connection between pitch and stands is visceral. Here, he is not just another cog in a machine, but a symbol, a beacon of ambition and hope for a fan base that lives, breathes the game. The pressure will be immense, for with great expectations come great demands. Yet Felix may find that Glasgow offers something he has long been searching for: authenticity. This move, already etched into football folklore, could either catapult Celtic into a new golden era or be remembered as a fleeting, audacious gamble. What is certain is that the whole of Scotland and much of Europe will be watching closely. And as the first notes of "You'll Never Walk Alone" rise once more into the cold night air, one thing is clear. João Felix is not just a Celtic player now. He is the embodiment of a dream turned reality, a living rumor that has transformed into history. Hello, fan! Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.